You go back to the game against the Chiefs when we won in their home. It was Brian Branch making magic happen.
Mm-hmm.
Against who? Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid coached Chiefs team. Now you're playing the Bills. You're playing Josh Allen. You're going to have a little bit of that Bills magic going on. But sometimes I do that was me. I was going back and forth with this because I understood the people. There were people telling me like, hey, look, the defense, did you really trust them? Don't you got to try something? And my retort was, but isn't trying something allowing Brian Branch, who was all over the field, 15 tackles, 18 solo, 2 tackles for loss, isn't it like allowing these guys to go out there and try and make a play on Josh Allen?
Yeah, and Cody Ingalls says something in the chat that I think is interesting, and I'm not mad at you for this. I just have a retort. We had no linebackers. How can you, with all seriousness, say you were confident the Lions would get a stop? Come on, Sam. They were getting cooked all day. Logically, you're right. I've watched enough Lions football. I've seen them defy the odds so many times, like win that game against Houston where Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions, or continue to withstand all of these injuries prior to last night being undefeated without Aiden Hutchinson. And as more guys continue to go down, continue to right the ship, that maybe it's an irrational confidence. Maybe logically it didn't make sense, and Dan Campbell knew his personnel and his players more than me. It's just, I see this team, the way this Lions team has been able to make the winning plays when they need to make them, even if they don't play their best game, that I just had this maybe irrational confidence. But the reality is that, and I'm not trying to say that I was right and Dan Campbell was wrong, the play did not work. You ended up giving the Buffalo Bills a 5-yard touchdown drive because of it. So you can't get upset with me for maybe questioning the call a little bit in hindsight. Do I think it was the biggest reason why they lost the game? Absolutely not. Am I saying that Dan Campbell has lost his chops as like a game manager? Of course not. If you say that, I don't think that's a very smart opinion. I will just say that. And maybe you're a little emotional after the game, which I understand, by the way. It's just that it didn't work. And it gave the Bills an easy touchdown. If you had kicked it deep, maybe the result goes differently. That's all I'm saying.
And I do enter my official stance on the record. Like I'm pro them kicking the onside kick. Online, I was more or less like, look, I do believe we got some dogs over there that could have just had a chance, because I don't believe that our defense was just going to line up and stop them. But if we're hoping for a miracle, I believe that the safer miracle at the time was hoping that Kirby Joseph, Jack Campbell, one of our guys that were in there and all over the field could make something happen. Or you just force a field goal, which they did do a couple times in that game. But ultimately, it was like, you know what, with how the offense was moving, and Chuck Brewer says this, Koolaid, if they recovered the onside kick where they normally do, Branch and crew would have had a chance to still hold them to a field goal. And that I understand that as well. Obviously, the onside kick gives them the short field. But I still believe that they would have a better opportunity to make something happen. But you know what? Dan Campbell, he knows his team. He tried something different, and that's why I'm like, I got to go with it.
It's also hard, like, to make a play if you're Brian Branch or, if you're Kirby Joseph in the run game. Like, because at that point, the Bills had no real reason to put the ball in the air, at least not enough to actually risk a turnover. So, like, would I have done that call? No. Ultimately, I felt like Dan Campbell, he made a decision for the team, and I'm not necessarily mad with that. I trust my coach and what he evaluated on the field. And if you look at what was happening during that game, the Bills came in and did what the Lions have done for 11 straight weeks. They controlled the ground game. They controlled the time of possession. And I think Dan Campbell got to a point where he was trying to play the clock. When you look at, your defense is getting beat up, you can't get a stop. Your pass rush was non-existent in this game. There wasn't much else that you could do. I do understand the logic behind, kicking it and letting your defense play. Like I said, I personally would not have made that decision, but I can't be mad at him when you're incurring all these injuries and your defense can't stop a nosebleed. I think he was really just trying to play the clock. Okay, if we can get a stop here, they'll have a shorter field, but if my defense can make something happen, they might give up a field goal at the worst, and we will still have more time to drive down the field and try and score a touchdown. What I keep iterating is that the chances of somebody returning an onside kick damn near for a touchdown is like, what are the odds of that? That normally does not happen. That was what actually was the backbreaker of that call. My man returning it to the 5 and then pretty much guaranteeing a touchdown on that drive. So, like I said, I'm not mad at Dan Campbell at all. I wouldn't have made that choice, but he was trying to look out for his defense. For people that say, oh, you didn't trust your defense, you've been trusting them all this time, I think he was trying to look out for his defense. Because, man, look, you had Carlton Davis go down. You had Aleem go down. You had Khalil Dorsey go down, and we hope he's okay, man. Very, very serious injury with him. So when you're losing bodies left and right and your defense is tired, they're constantly on the field, I can't blame him for trying to take a chance to get ahead, especially when your offense was cooking like that. And Dan Campbell, he's just one of those guys that we gotta live with the decisions, man. If you're gonna like some of the aggressive calls, you gotta live and die with it. So I don't think it was the most egregious call in the world at that time in the game. I don't.
And that's where I was like, let me just enter my official record. It's like, you know what? I roll with the call, even though, because I don't want anyone to be like, well, online you were saying this, and it's like, that's where it was in the heat of the moment. Logically, I feel like it was this, but I don't believe that he was making the decision from a logical standpoint, from like a X's and O's standpoint. I believe this was like, hey, listen, right now we need something to just happen. You're looking at 12 minutes on the clock, period. No matter where your defense is on the field, that's a tall task with Josh Allen on the other side.
Imagine you boot it, and you play the regular way, and then they have a 7-minute drive. I mean, that absolutely kills you. It doesn't matter if they scored a field goal. You don't have enough time to try and bridge that gap. So, like I said, I think he was just trying to be a little more forward-thinking and just trying to get maybe an extra possession out of that clock. And unfortunately, it just did not work. And that's the risk that you take.
And you take that risk, though, because you believe you can afford it with how well your offense was playing. And we saw – listen, it did cost them, and then did the Lions not respond? And that's the thing. It's just like, you know what, man, there's going to be so many decisions, and then the loss, those are one of the ones that you highlight. Those fourth down decisions and those kind of decisions like this to go with like either the trick plays or an onside kick, which we haven't seen from the Lions. I don't know the last time I saw an onside kick, and then we get 2 in one game. Those are the ones that are always going to have like the bat signal, shown on it. But we've won so many games with them making decisions, not necessarily an onside kick, but questionable decisions that have more times than not gone their way. This was the Bills. They lost 48-42. What you want to talk about is this. The Bills, they're not like perfectly healthy, but they are healthier than the Lions. They do have who I believe is going to be the NFL MVP, and the Lions went out there and pushed them. When you look at some of the games that the Lions lost last year that had fans kind of just, the sky is falling, this is one where I saw some different things than what I saw against the Ravens last year. This was a mobile quarterback. We understand what he can do, but I saw a path to a victory for the Lions yesterday. I saw a path for a comeback yesterday, but there were just a couple questionable decisions, obviously, because you're playing against the Bills. So it's like, you know what? They pushed them. They did make them fight after the first quarter. The Lions' offense went on a run, and you just didn't have enough time. And that's where I do agree with your assessment of Dan Campbell looking at the clock and saying, you know what, can I squeeze one more possession out of this thing? Yeah. Because I know if we can, our offense right now, it's going. If we don't, I believe that our offense can erase this pretty quickly as well.
Maybe it'd be different if they could have stopped the run game, but you had 197 yards on that side.
And they weren't fooling nobody on offense because, like we said at the beginning of the show, they weren't running. Jared Goff outrushed David Montgomery, and that's just insane.
That is one of the
right. And shout out to him. He played a hell of a game, and I think that's going to go slept on, because of everything that happened in this game. But he literally put the team on his back. Yes, we said Jared Goff.
500 yards, 5 touchdowns, Jared Goff.
You damn right.
We talking about
and no, he deserves his credit, Stick, because like I said, he put the team on his back last night, and besides that first quarter, he played a masterful game.
Most insane stat of the season: Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions, they win. Throws 5 touchdowns, they lose.
It's crazy.
Almost as if wins isn't a quarterback stat. But we'll
I was going to say.
Wait. It's almost as if you can't judge everything by stats, Flannel saying.
It's almost as if the defense actually showed up against Houston and didn't against Buffalo. Wow.
Hey, look, one more thing, just with the onside kick thing. You look at what the Lions did after that. 12 minutes, right?
Yep.
How many offensive possessions are you going to get? If the Bills get that, you're right. They could ice 7-8 minutes off because we weren't stopping anything. The Lions scored 2 more times, 2 more touchdowns in that time. They knew the type of defense that the Texans were going to check into. So that's why I was like, you know what? I understood it. I understood it. You got to do that. If they score quick, you get still the opportunity to score, and like they did. They scored 2 times, 2 there, 1 time the rest of the way.
If he gets the onside kick, we're sitting up here, he's a fucking genius. He's got big balls. He's this, he's that.
And where did he start to show at?
Exactly.
It almost worked out with the second one. We were sitting there like, wait, in that scrum, before the kick, I was like, all right, we didn't really, this game, it's not as close as the score. And then as soon as the scrum, I was like, oh, my God. It's as close as the score. They got an opportunity.
I was seriously like,
that close.
They're going to recover this, and they're going to have like a game-winning Hail Mary to J-Mo or something like that. That's honestly what I thought. But,
going into the end zone,
get them all, man.
holding the jewels, man.
That would have been crazy. But you know what? It's still 12-2. But when we come back, I know we're going to get into Jared Goff, I promise, because he